Upon seeing Zhang's poisonous mist, Jiagang's eyes widened in surprise and his jaw dropped, realizing that Zhang had defeated a 6th-level beast. With strength similar to that of a professional of the 6th transformation of star rank. Aunt Tang's eyes expanded in confusion. She was in shock upon seeing our boy's power. To them, Jiang Chen was not someone ordinary, realizing that now the city of Kujiang had hope. Zhang turned towards them and couldn't help but feel relieved to see that he had arrived on time. With a confident smile, he revealed that this time he was not alone, his companions had also come. This was not just a rescue mission, but the final stage of the genius ranking competition, a battle for glory and merit. At the same time, Tang Ying and Bai Feng were fighting against several beasts, both turned their backs to each other and started battling. With a confused expression, she began looking at Zhang and explained that even if they gave their best effort, it took them several minutes to defeat a level 4 fierce beast. But Jiang Chen, using Little Nine's poisonous mist, had annihilated a 6th-level beast in less than a minute. For her, competing for the merit ranking made no sense. A beast tried to attack Bai Feng, but he drew his sword and cut the monster's head in half. His attention fixed on Tang Ying, and with a calm gaze, he explained that this was not as unfair as she believed since, after all, the merits that Zhang obtained using the power of the 9 miasma wings only counted as 1/10 of normal merits. Not far away were Lai and his friend. Lei's eyes began to shine with excitement, and with a smile, he attacked a beast, slamming its body against the ground and tearing off a limb. He was excited because it was the first time he had fought against a horde of beasts, realizing that they kept coming non-stop. His friend, who was behind him, extended his hands and using his power began to strengthen Lai, asking him not to get distracted since these beasts were not like those from the camp of geniuses. They had to be careful with beasts beyond their ability since they could attack them by surprise. Mu Henkyu and Luo Sando had also come to help Zhang. Mu Henkyu drew both daggers and defeated a flying beast, but just then, another beast tried to launch a surprise attack. Fortunately, Luo Sando summoned a barrier around her, blocking the attack. Luo Sando's eyes filled with seriousness, and she asked Mu Henkyu to remain calm since as long as she was covering her, there was nothing to fear. With a determined gaze, Mu Henkyu promised to fight with everything she had to protect Zhang's city. They did not care about the competition. They were willing to let others fight for the genius ranking since they only cared about Zhang. Jianyu decided not to stand idly by. She raised the bow into the sky and used the scorching sun technique called Golden Phoenix Fire Rain, causing a powerful phoenix made of fire to emerge from her bow. During the secret realm, she had not shown a good performance and knew that now was the perfect time to do so. She decided to give her best to impress Zhang. Zhang Wuxuan clasped his hands together and used his power, causing a powerful golden energy to emerge from his body. He used the technique called War God's Body, making a powerful 9-armed spirit appear. A beast tried to attack, but the spirit delivered a powerful punch, splitting the beast's body in half. Zhang Wuxuan wanted to completely master the invincible heart since he did not want Zhang Cheng to be the only hero. And although in the secret realm he had not been up to par with him, now things were different. Yin Zhang's eyes began to shine with excitement. He had defeated a large number of beasts, and now under his feet was a mountain of corpses. Several powerful beasts began to fly towards him. Yin Zhang started to smile and decided that it was time to use the human emperor's sword. A powerful sword surrounded by a suffocating energy began to descend from the sky. Before in the secret realm, he had thought that he didn't need to use this sword against them. But now he had realized that if he wanted to defeat Zhang, he had to give it his all. As the only descendant of the human emperor, he made it clear that the first place in the genius ranking belonged to him. Seeing their power, Aunt Tang grabbed Jiagang by the arm and with a surprised expression said that the new generation of geniuses was incredible. Jiagang's eyes widened in fear. Realizing they were getting old, Zhang clenched his fist tightly and with a smile began to release poisonous mist. He felt excited since Jiang Wushuang had become much more powerful compared to when they were in the secret realm, and Yin Chang had unsheathed the human emperor's sword. Jia Gang and Aunt Tang started watching our boy, not knowing why he was smiling. Jiang knew very well that even though he had Little Nine as his trump card, he couldn't just stand idly by. Jiang took momentum, and while his eyes were shining with joy, he began to move quickly towards the horde of beasts, and with a smile. He asked Jia Gang and Tang to watch since today he was not only going to finish off the beasts, but also going to obtain the first place in the ranking of geniuses. Jia Gang and Tang started to observe our boy, firmly believing that he could achieve it. Xiaoqi stood up, extended her hands towards Shu Belong and the others, and using her power, she began to heal them. Jia Gang stood up, began to approach them, and with an expression full of fear revealed that he had a bad feeling, asking Xiaoqi to come with him as they needed to hurry and repair the protection spell. With a serious gaze, she turned to Jia Gang and nodded her head. Not far from the area was the lover. Her eyes widened in rage upon seeing Jiang Cheng. She was furious not knowing how he and the others were still alive. They were on top of a cliff. In the middle of the city, a great explosion occurred, and the air filled with poisonous mist. She was confused, not knowing if the young divine had been defeated. She had heard about the poisonous mist of the 9 miasma wings, but had never imagined it would be such a powerful ability. She leaped and decided to go to Quzhang's underground rift to inform the ancient god, ordering her subordinates to immediately report to the Abyss Spider Queen so that she could act at once, since only she could face off against the 9 miasma wings. The hooded men crouched down and nodded their heads. Back to the battle, Zhang drew his sword, and using the Thunder Sword skill, he moved quickly, cutting the body of a beast into pieces. After defeating the beast, he rested his sword on his shoulder, and his eyes widened with confidence. Little Nine manifested, but now in the form of the mother insect. She devoured a beast and with a piercing gaze informed Zhang that she had eaten another beast. With a smile, our boy gave her permission to eat until she could no longer. Little by little, she began to fill up, and after devouring so many beasts, the system granted our boy more than 60,000 experience points, leveling up from 48 to 57 in an instant. Zhang appeared in his sea of consciousness where Little Nine was eating a beast. Our boy extended his hand, making appear the cards he had obtained from the tree's fruits. His eyes widened with joy as a smile appeared on his face. Thanks to the double experience card, he and Little Nine had reached level 57. This horde of beasts was a perfect opportunity, as if that weren't enough, they also had an exemption card for the third transformation. So tonight they were going to be able to complete it, obtaining a new mother insect. Zhao Jia appeared, began to show a finger, and with a sincere look explained that on the battlefield there were many souls, asking if he needed help to collect them. Upon hearing his voice, Zhang turned towards him, and with a confused expression asked if he did not want to devour the souls. Zhao Jia began to gaze at the ground and touch the tips of his fingers, explaining that these things did not interest him since Jiang had promised him a great banquet. But our boy explained that the fruits of the tree needed to be watered with souls, asking him to go collect the souls. With a serious expression, he asked Zhao Jia to be careful and keep a low profile since he was his secret card and should not reveal his existence unless absolutely necessary. Zhao Jia nodded his head. The merit list of Grand Zia appeared. In the first place was Zhang Xuanzi, in the second was Zhu Linggu. In the third, the great dreamer Huan Yu. In 28th place was Gu Kaishan. In 296th place was Zhang Chen. In 401st place was Ying Zhang. And in 568th place was Zhang Hoshuang. Ying Zhang, who was holding the human emperor's sword, began to observe the bracelet, and upon seeing that in such a short time Zhang Chen had entered the top 300 of the Daxia merit ranking, his eyes filled with rage as unlike Zhang, he was still outside the top 400. With an expression full of determination, Ying Zhang moved quickly and started using the sword to massacre all the beasts in his path. He knew that if he wanted to surpass Jiang, he had to find another way. Merits could not only be obtained by killing beasts, but also by contributing. He knew that with such a large horde of beasts, there had to be a rift. He decided to find it and destroy it, since only this way would he be able to surpass Jiang. At the same time, Jie Gang and the others were on top of the city wall. Zhao Qi's eyes widened with seriousness. She placed her hands on her knees and informed Jiagang that she had already repaired the protection spell. Jiagang, who was sitting on the wall, began to observe Jiang and asked why he had ventured so deep into enemy lines. Shu Bulin crossed his arms and explained that he had nothing to fear since, with the help of the 9 miasma wings, he could carve his way through. Jiang Chen was like a monarch, strolling through his own territory. Jiagang's eyes widened with confidence. He began pointing at Jiang with his finger, and thought that he must be taking advantage of this great opportunity to level up and advance directly to the 3rd transformation. Su Bulin's eyes expanded in surprise upon learning that Jiang was about to advance to the 3rd transformation. He put his hand under his chin and remembered that after the 3rd class change, warriors became stronger and could even evolve their professions. But the 3rd change mission was a great obstacle, in which even Shu Bulin had been stuck for 4 years. Jiagang's gaze fixed on Jiang, and he began to imagine Zhang Xuanji Gu Kaishan and Jiang explaining that the 3rd, 6th, and 9th class changes were 3 great challenges, difficult to overcome. Many awakened spent their entire lives without being able to break these barriers, but this generation of prodigies was different. Yin Zhan, Jai Xuanyu, and Zhang Wushuang had reached the 3rd class change before the great genius competition. Some were even already at a stage where they could reach the 4th transformation at any moment. Compared to them, Jiang Chen was somewhat slow. As they were conversing, Jiang's ancestral tree manifested itself, capturing everyone's attention. Jiagang's eyes widened in surprise along with those of Shu Bulin and Kaioki as their jaws dropped upon realizing that Jiang had begun the 3rd class change. They were in shock seeing that his professions were improving directly. No one knew how he had skipped the class change mission. The ancestral tree was gigantic, and the area was filled with the corpses of beasts. Seeing this, Jiagang couldn't help but wonder if Jiang had some legendary item to skip the mission. But he panicked since he knew that Jiang had been transported to the initiation space, leaving him vulnerable and making it very dangerous. Tang Ying's attention, who was holding the body of a beast, and Bai Feng's focused on the ancestral tree. To them, Jiang was very brave for wanting to make a breakthrough directly on the battlefield. They decided to hurry and go protect him. Luo Sandao jumped and asked Mu Hankyu not to get caught up in battle since Jiang was making a breakthrough, and they needed to go protect him. Jiang Wuxiang's eyes widened with excitement. He knew that he couldn't surpass him for now, so he decided to go help defend him. Meanwhile, Ying Zhang reached a giant beast which could establish a long-distance transmission channel. There were 2 beasts, one called Yin and the other Yang. The Yang beast was in front of him, and the Yin beast had to be on the other side, underground. He began to observe the beast and felt fortunate, since he only had to eliminate one of them, and the transmission would stop. He gripped his sword tightly, and despite knowing that this was a 7th-level beast, it was no match for the descendant of the human emperor. With a confident expression, he took out 3 forbidden spell seals, which were more than enough to defeat a 7th-level beast. He was confident that first place in the genius ranking would be his. Just then, the portal behind him activated. Ying Zhang turned around and with a confused expression began to wonder what was happening. Not long after, someone emerged from the portal. Ying Zhang's attention fixed on it, and his eyes widened in fear, leaving him in shock. A powerful spider emerged from the portal and began staring at Ying Zhang. To her, he looked delicious. His attention fixed on her, and it didn't take long for him to realize that she was the Abyss Spider Queen. Compared to the spider, Ying Zhang was like a small insect. he remembered that she had managed to escape several times from the hands of the sword god Jai Lingqiu, so her strength was not ordinary. Moreover, forbidden spell seals were useless against her, making him realize that he had to flee since he was no match for her. He knew that Jiang Cheng was in the middle of his breakthrough. He had to find a way to escape and warn the others. The Spider Queen attacked with her sharp leg, but Ying Jiang reacted in time and, jumping, dodged the attack. Instead of fighting, he used the blood explosion technique and started to flee the area. The Spider Queen began to watch him in silence. Then, she extended her leg toward him and attacked. According to her, he was knave for thinking he could escape. Silk emerged from her leg and wrapped around Ying Jiang's arm. His eyes widened in fear. He clenched his teeth and his eyes began to shine with determination. Without hesitating for a second, using the sword, he cut off his own arm. And then he cut off both legs, causing blood to spurt out like jets. Ying Jiang used the ability called Concentrated Blood Mist and began to fly quickly toward the ancestral tree. The Spider Queen's eyes began to shine as she realized that Ying Jiang's body was full of vitality. Two men from the cult prostrated themselves before her, explaining that Jiang Cheng was in the middle of his breakthrough. His consciousness had entered the initiation space. So this was the perfect moment, asking her to go kill him to prevent him from causing problems in the future. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, in the line of defense of the eastern sea of Jiangnan, Gukashin Lipton, using his sword, launched a powerful slash towards the sea beast. A slash of energy shot out from his sword, cutting off one of the beast's limbs. It became enraged and with eyes shining with fury. It turned its back on him and began to flee the area. The limb of the sea beast flew through the air, and without wasting another second, it submerged into the water. Gu Kaishin's attention was fixed on it. He was furious to see that the marine race had such despicable beings as it. The beast had fled after being attacked. He advised the beast not to come out making noise if it did not want to fight. Using his powers, Duan summoned ice over the surface of the sea. He turned towards Gu Kaishin and with a serious expression said that he had good news. From a Chang they had sent a message. Chu Jiang had managed to contain the horde of beasts, and furthermore, he had discovered that Jiang Chen had entered the top 300 in Great Zia's merit ranking. Gu Kaishin turned around and his eyes widened in surprise, causing his jaw to drop. He could not believe that Jiang Chen had managed to enter the merit ranking of Great Zia. Knowing that this was an achievement that not even many great masters could attain throughout their lives. While they were conversing, red energy began to manifest in the sky, their attention fixed on it, realizing that it was the legendary warning signal known as the Tianyuan alert. Gu Kaishin's eyes filled with fear as he explained that the alert had been created by the human emperor of Great Zia, and that many years had passed since he had last seen one. Don's eyes widened in surprise and terror as when a level 8 or higher enemy appeared somewhere, and there was no expert present to confront it, Tianyuan's alert was activated. The energy began to form a portal, showing the live transmission of the Spider Queen with eyes shining with evil. Gu Kaishin and Dawn knew this was not good since this monster was the Abyssal Spider Queen. The sea beast, with eyes full of rage, emerged from the water and began to move quickly toward them, ready to attack again. Seeing that it had reappeared, Gu Kaishin turned around, drew his sword, and could not help but feel furious. He decided to take care of the 7th level sea beast himself, asking Duan to go to Chujiang and only ensure Zhang's life was saved without directly confronting the Spider Queen. Duan turned around and with a serene expression began to run, promising to do everything possible to protect Zhang Chuan. Somewhere else was the defense line of Chuanlongguan located in the underground cave. The place was filled with soldiers wearing knight armor. Just then, a powerful portal appeared in front of them, and from within something began to emerge. Upon noticing this, the god of war gave an order: if the 10,000 races of the abyss dared to take a step forward, they would be mercilessly killed. The soldiers began to observe the portal, shouting that Great Shi was powerful. Zhang Xuanji drew his spear, and while his eyes were shining with rage, his body began to release a powerful energy. Someone's voice started sounding, saying that Zhang Xuanji had to die, revealing that the 9 miasma wings was going to cause a great disaster that would destroy the world. In front of him was a giant level 9 demon named Chu Yang. While the demon's eyes were shining with malice, he began to observe Zhang Xuanji, and with a smile mentioned that he knew they had been raising offspring of the 9 miasma wings within the territory of Dajia, totaling tens of millions of insects. Xuanji, who was flying in the air, simply remained silent. Chu Yang asked if humans did not fear that the countless races of the caves would unite to exterminate humans once and for all. Zhang Xuanji's eyes began to shine with rage. He started staring at Chu Yang and questioned whether the grudges among the 10 sallows and abyssal races had been resolved. He knew they would not abandon their hostilities just because of the appearance of a few million insects. He was confident that all they could do was unite to cause a small disturbance. Zhang Xuanji's body became gigantic. With a furious gaze, he placed his hand on Chu Yang's shoulder, raised the spear, and said that the demon race had no right to meddle in human affairs, reminding Chu Yang that last time he had cut him into pieces with his axe, asking if he hadn't learned his lesson. Chu Yang began to observe Zhang Xuanji in silence, not knowing what to say. Just before Xuanji could attack, red energy appeared behind him. His attention was fixed on it, and his eyes widened in surprise, realizing that it was the genuine alert. Chu Yang drew his spear, and with a wicked smile attacked Xuanji, revealing that the 9 miasma wings were nothing compared to them, vowing that today they would completely exterminate it along with the geniuses of Dajia. Luckily, Xuanji reacted in time and dodged the attack. Then he grabbed his spear tightly and attacked. Chu Yang blocked the attack. Both began to fight, and Xuanji gave the order to the commander of the Blue Dragon camp, Shen Tufei, to go to Chu Jiang to provide support. Tufei started observing Xuanji and nodded his head. Chu Yang's eyes began to shine with confidence, and with a smile, he made it clear that the support wouldn't even arrive in time to collect the corpses. The portal grew larger, and from within demons began to emerge, some flying and others wearing hoods while wielding spears as weapons. Chu Yang revealed that today they were going to break through Great Zia's defense line. Xuanji's eyes filled with rage. He gripped the spear tightly and with a furious expression told Chu Yang to stop dreaming. Then he gave the order to the human warriors to kill all the demons. At the same time, on Chu Jiang's battlefield was the Spider Queen, who began staring at the cult members and with a piercing gaze asked them one last time if Jai Lingqiu had been defeated, making it clear that if he arrived before she died, she would exterminate the entire cult of the ancient god. Feeling her gaze, they began to feel fear, but one of them told her not to worry since both Monk Qingling and Jai Lingqiu had gone to the forbidden zone of the 100,000 mountains, and at this moment they must be fighting against the 9th-level blood dragon. The dragon fought to death, so Jai Lingqiu would not be able to escape. The Spider Queen extended her legs and began to release a horde of spiders. She decided to be cautious by giving the small spiders the order to go explore the city of Chujiang and make sure there were no traces of Jai Lingqiu. Zhang Chen, who had his eyes closed, was inside the ancestral tree with his body surrounded by energy. Zhai Gang and the others arrived at the area and decided to protect him and prevent the horde of beasts from approaching him. The area was filled with beasts. While everyone was distracted, Yingzhan started flying towards them, and upon seeing this, Jiang Wushwang's eyes widened in surprise and confusion. With a worried gaze, he asked why he was injured. Yingzhan's eyes filled with fear. He began to look at them, and with a worried expression asked them to flee, revealing that the Abyss Spider Queen had appeared. Upon hearing this, everyone went into shock. Zhang's body began to release poisonous mist, which spread throughout the area. With a serious expression, Shaoqi extended her hands and using her power began to heal all the wounded warriors. Jia Gang drew his sword and with a serious gaze explained that Zhang Chen was inside the spiritual tree, so it was impossible to move him to a safe place, making it clear that they had to stand firm and wait for him to complete his breakthrough. Someone created a blue shield. Jia Gang started observing them and asked them to enter the protection shield to heal their wounds while waiting for support to arrive. The great defense spell had already been reinforced, so they were going to be able to resist a few more minutes. Ying Zhan, who was flying, began advancing towards the shield to heal his wounds first, since the Spider Queen was not an opponent they could face. Bai Fang and the others also started walking towards the shield. Lei crossed his arms and, with a curious expression, began to look at his friend and explained that this was not a safe place, suggesting that it was better to leave. Vizi, who was sitting, summoned a small portal, began to observe it, and with a confident expression said that the old saying stated that lucky people had the protection of the sky. He had just done the calculations, and this time it was not a dead-end alley. Vizi took a treasure out of the portal and mentioned that if there was no other option but to fight, then he had no choice but to ask Grandpa Monkey for help. He called upon the magic gourd, giving it the order to come out and assist. Vizi closed his eyes, raised the treasure, and asked Grandpa Monkey for help since they were the treasure began to shine. Lai, who had his arms crossed, started observing it in silence with a curious expression. An eye appeared in the treasure. Grandpa Monkey made it clear that he was no match for the level 8 Spider Queen, but he decided to completely exhaust her strength, asking Vizi to come with him. Instead of helping them, Grandpa Monkey used his powers and the bodies of Vizi and Lai were absorbed by the treasure, leaving them somewhat confused. Kang Ying drew her dagger and her eyes filled with seriousness. Mu Henkyu closed her eyes and raised her fist to the sky. She was furious knowing that they could not rely on useless people like Lai in busy and critical moments. Jie Qiangyu's eyes began to shine with determination, and she made it clear that she would never abandon Zhang Chen, deciding to use all the treasures she had in the worst-case scenario. Luo Sando clenched her fist, and with a serious expression swore to fight against the beasts until the end. Zhang Wushuang's attention was fixed on them, and his eyes widened in surprise. He let out a sigh. And despite being afraid, he couldn't leave and abandon the girls alone, because if he ran away, he wouldn't be able to boast of having an invincible heart. Jia Zheng clenched his fist, turned to Zhang, and with a sincere expression asked him to wake up quickly. They were not afraid of death, and the only thing they feared was not being able to protect him. Zhang was inside the origin space. With a lost gaze, he began to ponder in silence. He did not expect that after using the mission exemption card for job change, his consciousness would be dragged directly into the origin space. Ruins began to float around him. Zhang came out of his trance and started observing them with a surprised expression. He knew that if he canceled the class change now, he would have to redo the third class change mission. But now that the outside was filled with insects, he wasn't going to have many problems since, after all, they had an average level of 30. He noticed that the class runes were advanced version classes. A system window appeared in front of him. He had used the class change mission exemption card to complete the third class change mission called Thunder Dominator. The evaluation of the third class had been completed, and now the selection of the Thunder System rune was about to begin. Zhang started observing the runes, realizing that thousands of them had already gone extinct, and that those remaining must be related to the Thunder System, and all had a level higher than that of Thunder Lord class. Zhang extended his hand and began to smile. The system completed the selection, revealing that now only 9 runes remained. The rune entered our boy's head, and his unique rank profession Lord of Thunder advanced to God rank God of Thunder. Then a status window appeared in front of our boy. He had obtained new abilities, the first called Punishment of Thunder, which would allow him to conjure a thunder eye in the void capable of attacking the opponent's mind. The second ability was called 3 Zalos and Cataclysms of Thunder. It was a massive area ability. Jiang could cast a punishment of thunders upon his opponents. The third and final ability was called God of Thunder. Jiang would be able to release an eternal domain space 100 meters around him. The domain would eliminate all elements within its area and weaken the target's properties. It also possessed a devouring effect over other domains whose level was lower than Jiang's. Jiang extended his hand toward the system window. He was somewhat surprised to see that they were all powerful abilities. Besides, he remembered that many of the awakened obtained their own domain after making the 6th class change. He touched the system window without knowing how he was going to compare his domain with that of his master and his older sister. Something caught our boy's attention, and when he turned around, he saw that the class runes were starting to shine again. His mind filled with confusion as the thousands of runes that had been extinguished before were shining once more. The ancestral tree appeared in front of him. Jiang began to observe it in silence. He had used the mission exemption card for class change to complete the 3rd class change mission of Master of Divine Creation. The system began to select the runes related to his class, and his divine rank profession Master of Divine Creation became the profession called the beginning of everything at divine rank. He obtained new abilities again, the first one called Supreme Path. After learning this technique, there was a probability of activating simplified mode. All his abilities would have a certain probability of leveling up when used. The second ability was called Evolution to Complexity, an improved version of growth of all things. Jiang had the ability to accelerate the growth and reproduction of all living beings, breaking the limit on production quantity, performing a transformation in both time and quantity for the target living being, being able to accelerate between 50 and 200 times randomly and increase quantity between 2 and 10 times randomly. Jiang clenched his fist, making electrical energy emerge, then extended his hand, causing a root to appear in his palm. Compared to the Thunder God class, his main class was even more incredible. Using the Supreme Path ability, he would be able to learn the techniques of all races just like Ying Zhan, and with the Evolution to Complexity ability, he would be able to accelerate the reproduction of insects. For him, this was like using cheats. Knowing that in the next reproduction cycle, Little 9 would give birth to 10 billion insects, and if probability increased, they could exceed 100 billion. At that moment, a new insect mother appeared. She placed her hand on her chest and introduced herself adorably as Zhao Chan. Seeing this, Jiang was in shock since he had not yet used the growth of all things ability nor the life rank jump, without knowing how she had already transformed into human form. Outside, the Spider Queen began releasing a large number of spiders. She and Little 9 were at the same level, so their number exceeded Jiang's insects. Jai Gang mentioned that they could rely on insects to protect Jiang. Thus, he gave everyone orders to prepare for battle until death, since stopping the Spider Queen was their top priority. Zhang Wuxiang used the body of the god of war, making his giant 10-armed spirit appear. Jai Junyu shot an arrow into the air and summoned the fire phoenix. Jai Gang drew his sword and everyone began to fight against the spiders. Little 9 transformed into the 9 miasma wings and with a piercing gaze began to advance towards the Spider Queen. Luo Sando extended her hands and with a determined expression used her powers and summoned several barriers around Jiang. Her eyes began to shine with rage, making it clear that if they approached, they would detonate the divine weapon. The Spider Queen jumped and attacked with a shockwave. With a murderous look, she revealed that they were no match for her. The attack was so powerful that the bodies of Jai Gang and the others were sent flying backward. No one was able to resist. Luo Sando opened her mouth and started spitting blood. The eyes of Little 9, who was sitting on Jiang's shoulder, filled with tears and fear. She began to cry, asking him to wake up quickly since the Spider Queen had already killed many of the insects. Jiang opened his eyes and his attention fixed on the Spider Queen. With a smile, he asked Little 9 not to be afraid since her father was already awake. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, Jiang drew his sword and with a piercing gaze began to stare intently at the Spider Queen, then placed his hand on the ground and used his skill called Growth of All Things, causing roots to emerge from the ground. Jiang stood up and extended his hand towards Luo Sando and the others, giving the order for the roots to take everyone back to the city, and for Little Nine to protect them. The roots began moving towards them until they wrapped around their bodies. Mu Henkyu panicked, not knowing what Jiang was doing. Jia Xuanyu turned around, and upon seeing what Jiang was planning to do, she couldn't help but feel somewhat confused, making it clear that he alone would not be able to defeat the Spider Queen. Luo Sando's eyes widened in surprise and fear. She started screaming, refusing to flee, promising that she could keep fighting. She and the others did not want to leave Jiang alone. Jiang's eyes began to shine with confidence. He started massaging his shoulder and asked them to stop talking, advising them that it was better to go heal in a safe place, revealing that with them here, he couldn't move freely. Moreover, this monster was level 8, and it wasn't the first time he had faced one. The Spider Queen's attention focused on Jiang. She started laughing, mocking humans for having ridiculous feelings. According to her, they were nothing more than arrogant and ignorant beings. Jiang began observing her in silence. Little Nine felt somewhat curious and asked if he planned to use the insect's self-destruction ability to confront the Spider Queen. She started crying, saying she was very sad. Jiang explained that there was no need to use the insects because if he made all of them explode again, even he would feel bad. So he asked her this time just to take care of the Spider Queen's offspring while he dealt with the Queen herself. The Spider Queen began to touch her chin with her finger, and her eyes started to shine with malice. She mentioned that not even the level 9 sword god had been able to kill her, so there was no way that a mere awakened one of 3 transformations could stand against her. With a confident gaze, Jiang began to show a finger in, with a smile, asked how the level 9 sword god could compare to someone like him, revealing that he was now a master of 3 transformations. Deep down, he wanted the Spider Queen to underestimate him. The Spider Queen's eyes widened with joy. She began to laugh out loud. Seeing this, one of the cult members beside her extended his hand toward her and asked her to stop laughing and act quickly, because if she didn't do it now, he feared that Jailing Q might return and kill her. She told him to stop scaring her, explaining that Jiang was too funny. Jiang's gaze fixed on her, and with a confident expression, he asked Zhaoji to give him a full drop of the ancient god's blood. He also added that this time he did not need him to endure it for him. Zhaoji manifested, took a drop of the ancient god's blood from his own finger, and with a confused expression, asked if Jiang was sure that his body would be able to withstand the blood without his help. Jiang began to smile, making it clear that he was sure. Zhaoji handed him a full drop of the ancient god's blood, which fell to the ground and mixed with Jiang's blood. Our boy decided to use the supreme elephant's body to control the blood. Evil energy and sharp blades made of blood began to emerge from our boy's body. He placed his hands on his back and started screaming in agony. Then Jiang's body changed and his hair turned white. While evil energy was emerging from his body, he forcefully stepped on the ground and started staring intently at the Spider Queen. Upon seeing Jiang's new power, she panicked, not knowing why he had the aura of the 7th transformation or what he had just consumed to have this power. One of the cult members revealed that Jiang had mixed a drop of ancient god's blood with his own blood, something that the body of an awakened one with 3 transformations could not withstand. They were sure that Jiang's body was going to explode and he was going to die. Jiang adopted an offensive stance, and with a murderous gaze, he felt joyful upon seeing that his body had been able to withstand the blood of an awakened one with a 7th transformation. Jiang's gaze fixed on the Spider Queen. He gained momentum and began advancing rapidly toward her, vowing to kill her. As he gradually approached, the Spider Queen started observing him, and instead of panicking, she remained calm, realizing why Jiang had been so confident before. It turned out that he had an ace up his sleeve that allowed him to have the power of an awakened one with a 7th transformation. With an arrogant expression, she jumped and launched silk from her abdomen toward our boy, asking him not to be so naive since there was no way that by forcing the power of the 7th transformation he could defeat her. Zhang's eyes began to shine with hatred. He became alert, realizing that she wanted to use the silk to entangle him. The silk shot out from the Spider Queen's abdomen toward Zhang, but he reacted in time and using his new power, he jumped, dodging the attack. Noticing this, the Spider Queen felt somewhat confused, not knowing what was happening. Her eyes widened in surprise and confusion. According to her, this shouldn't be happening since she had predicted Zhang's movements. At first, she thought that Zhang had predicted her movements, but then she thought there was no way since his level was lower than hers. While she was distracted, Zhang jumped, and as thunder emerged from his body, he prepared to attack, telling her not to be so arrogant. Upon hearing Zhang's voice, she snapped out of her thoughts and seeing that he was ready to attack, went on alert. Our boy used the skill called Eye of Evil, causing a powerful and giant eye to appear in the sky. The Spider Queen was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. Zhang closed his eyes and began to cover his face with his arm, asking everyone not to look since it was going to damage their essence. Following the order, Zhang Wuxiang also closed his eyes and put his arm in front of his face. He was somewhat confused upon seeing that Zhang's Thunder class had risen to divine level. Yin Zhang also closed his eyes. He was in shock since Zhang had 2 divine level classes, realizing that now there was no way to compete with him. Zhang, who was flying, began to stare at the Spider Queen and gave the order to the Eye of Evil to block her sea of consciousness. Upon hearing the order, the attention of the eye fixed on her and it began to shine. Then, a powerful thunder started descending upon her. The eyes of the Spider Queen expanded. She began to observe the eye and panicked since, as demonic beasts, their spiritual essence was weaker compared to humans, so she decided to resist the attack. Just before the thunder could strike her body, she summoned a blood shield and covered herself from the attack. Zhang, whose body was surrounded by thunder, descended in front of her. The Spider Queen turned around and began to observe him carefully, explaining that although the essence of beasts was not as strong as that of humans, the physical body of beasts was their secret weapon. With an expression full of fury, she moved quickly and tried to attack Zhang using her sharp leg. But Zhang used the technique called lightning bolt, and his body transformed into thunder, dodging the attack. The attention of the Spider Queen was fixed on Zhang and her eyes filled with confusion. She could not believe that Zhang had once again gotten ahead and dodged the attack again. With the speed of a thunderbolt, she did not know if he had precognition abilities, but then dismissed this idea since it was impossible. Not even an awakened of the perception class could do it, believing that it was just pure luck. Zhang turned his back to her and began moving like a thunderbolt. The Spider Queen soon realized that he was moving at the speed of light using the electric field of Thunder's domain. She became angry and started releasing silk, thinking that Zhang was showing off in front of her. In the blink of an eye, silk emerged from her body and formed a barrier around the area. Our boy quickly realized that she wanted to cover his electric field with a web and use the web to feed back information and teleport. Her sharp leg appeared in front of Zhang. She called him bastard and said that this time he couldn't escape. Zhang raised his head, and his eyes widened in fear and surprise. With a confident gaze, Zhang began to stare at her intently and made it clear that the one who couldn't escape was her. The Spider Queen attacked using her sharp leg, but Zhang blocked the attack and then, using the skill called Blade of Heaven and Thunder, forcefully swung his sword. Our boy moved quickly and with a penetrating gaze, cut off the Spider Queen's leg without even giving her time to react. Her leg went flying, and she began screaming in agony. The ant's eyes widened in fear and surprise, leaving her in shock upon seeing how strong Zhang was. Zhaigang's jaw dropped in shock, realizing that Zhang's cut had the same power as Master Gu Kaishan's, not knowing if Zhang was hiding another profession like the perception class since there was no way he could repeatedly predict the Spider Queen's attack patterns. Xiaoqi's gaze, who was healing the others, fixed on Zhang and her eyes widened in fear, leaving her speechless. For her, it was impossible that an awakened with 3 transformations had a perception ability much stronger than that of a level 8 monster. This was something that not even an awakened of sealed king level could do. Zhang stood up, and while his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he began to observe the Spider Queen in silence. He was somewhat surprised to see that this strike had injured the Spider Queen, realizing that her body could not withstand an attack enhanced by the essence of the ancient god's blood. He had used almost all his power in the last attack, and the strength of the ancient god's blood was about to run out, so he had to hurry and finish this as soon as possible. His next attack had to be a lethal blow, something that would not allow her to have the strength to counterattack. While the cut leg of the Spider Queen was bleeding, her attention was fixed on Zhang and her eyes began to shine with fury. She could not believe that an ant had dared to wound the majestic level 8 queen. Zhang, who was standing in front, mocked her by saying that a level 8 monster was not a big deal. For him, it was no surprise that she had been hiding in the depths of the earth for hundreds of years. Zhang's plan was to make her angry. He wanted her to lose reason under unbridled fury. The plan worked since her eyes filled with rage and silk began to emerge from her body. She explained that her essence had been damaged by Jai Lingqiu last time, and she did not want to use it, but given that he was seeking death, she decided to fulfill his wishes. She began to release silk. This was the domain of an 8th level monster. No one knew if Zhang was going to be able to resist. Some believed that he was going to die. Zhang could not help but smile upon seeing that she had finally decided to use her original essence to deploy a domain, but with a serene gaze, he revealed that it was a shame since it was too late. He extended his hand, making thunder appear in his palm, then placed his hand on the ground and activated the eternal domain of the Thunder God class. Then he stood up, and thunder began to strike against the body of the Spider Queen. She fell to the ground and could not help but feel fear, not knowing how Zhang knew that she was going to deploy her domain or how it was possible for him to have such a strong domain. She tried to deploy her domain again but was unable. Zhang extended his hand toward her, and while gathering energy with a smile, he said there were 2 reasons. First, she was too slow, and second, his domain was stronger. She began to feel terror, thinking that this was impossible. Zhang's eyes filled with seriousness. He decided to end the fight since he had no desire to talk with her. Our boy used his power, causing a powerful thunderbolt to descend from the sky onto her body. The Spider Queen began screaming in agony. Zhang remained watching in silence. Souls began to emerge from her body. With a gaze full of fear, she lowered her head before Zhang, promising never again to go out causing trouble and begging for mercy. Zhang's eyes began to shine with confusion. He knew that he could not fall into her trap, although only the spiritual essence remained. She was still a formidable creature. Realizing that the celestial thunder still needed some time to completely destroy her soul, her body collapsed to the ground and Zhang began to observe carefully. He asked Little Nine to keep watch over her so that when there was no danger, she could come out and devour her. Just then, Zhang started feeling dizzy, realizing that his body had reached its limit. He sat on the ground, closed his eyes, and placed his hand over his face. Just then Zhao Chan emerged and with a worried gaze sat beside him and asked if he was okay. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, with a worried expression, Xiao Chan placed one hand on Zhang's chest and the other on his back. She helped him stand up and said it was all her fault for being useless. Zhang, who had his eyes closed, stood up, clenched his fist, and with a sincere expression asked her not to feel guilty, since if it weren't for her power to foresee the future, he would never have won this battle. Xiao Chan's eyes widened with sadness. She looked away and mentioned that Zhang was praising her too much. Then a system window appeared. It showed Xiao Chan's statistics. She had been born at the source of the river of time, existed at the same level as time itself, and had an ability called Eye of Time which allowed her to see 3 seconds into the future by consuming 10 sub-bodies, being an accumulable ability with a maximum capacity of seeing 10 years into the future. Currently she was level 0, had an affinity of 100 stars and 18 sub-bodies. Initially she had 48 but had already consumed 30 during combat against the Spider Queen. Her talent was still yet to be unlocked. In addition, she had 2 reproduction methods. The first, called natural reproduction, in which only the main body could generate sub-bodies, 1 per hour. The second method was called special reproduction, where the host could sacrifice their lifespan. Minimum 1 year, each year of lifespan generated 1,000,000 sub-bodies. Zhang's eyes filled with tranquility. He touched his head with his fingers and decided to rest for a while, promising Xiao Chan that he was going to be fine, giving her the order to hide for now and not emerge unless it was absolutely necessary. Xiao Chan's body transformed into energy and entered Zhang's head. Just then, Zhang's domain became stronger, causing thunder to start emerging from it. The attention of Jai Gang and the others who were on the cliff focused on Zhang's domain. Our boy was in the third transformation, and no one could believe that he already had a domain, when normally one would have a domain upon reaching the 6th transformation. Some thought having 2 divine-level classes was incredible. Everyone began to watch in silence. The eyes of Yinzhan, who had his hand over the wound on his arm, widened with rage and despair. Zhang was fighting alone against the level 8 Spider Queen, while on the other side, he was hiding. And if it weren't for the spiritual pills he carried with him, he would probably already be crippled. They were all divine-level awakened ones, but Zhang Chen could crush them as if nothing. While Yinzhan was distracted, Zhang Wushuang placed a hand on his shoulder and decided to calm him down. With a sincere gaze, Yinzhan admitted that it was frustrating to be from the same generation as Zhang Chen. As a descendant of the human emperor, he wasn't going to give up and swore to one day surpass Zhang. If his talent wasn't enough, then he was even willing to go into the depths of the caverns in search of an opportunity. Lu Sandao, who had her eyes closed, explained that Jiang's talent was extraordinary and any effort to surpass him was useless. Yinzhan's attention focused on her, and those words were like an arrow in his heart. At the same time, the members of the blood cult were at Ku Jiang's underground altar. They formed a circle, and in the middle was the highest-ranking member, who used her powers and summoned a red magic circle. She communicated with the great god, saying that she was his faithful servant, the 7th seat of the Church of the Ancient God. She knelt down, placed her hand on the ground, and with a serious expression informed God that the beast tide had encountered some problems, revealing that someone from Great Xia had the ability to control the offspring of the 9 miasma wings. Just then, evil energy began to emerge from the magic circle. For God, this was impossible. A giant eye appeared in the sky and began to shine with hatred. God's attention focused on his subordinate. He remembered that the offspring of 9 miasma wings had always been a forbidden existence in all eras, and if Zhang Zunji dared to allow his people to raise them, then he would be an enemy of all races. She knelt before him, raised her head and promised that she was telling the truth. Using her powers, she summoned a portal which began to show the insects that were devouring the corpses of the beasts. Upon seeing this, the god could not help but feel furious. According to him, Jiang Zongji had to die and all humanity of Great Xia had to. The subordinate's eyes widened with worry and fear. With a nervous expression, she asked the god to calm down since she had sent the Spider Queen to prevent any unforeseen events. The god's attention fixed on her and his eye began to shine with rage. He used his powers, causing evil energy to begin entering her body, and not long after she opened her mouth and began screaming in agony. The energy of the god began to enter her body, causing her eyes to start glowing. He decided to transfer a bit of his energy into her body, revealing that in a short time, she was going to have the strength of an awakened one with 9 transformations. The god gave her the order to annihilate the descendants of the 9 miasma wings and kill Zhang, making it clear that even if she had to sacrifice all beings in the city, she must make his descent possible. 10 minutes later, once the god's energy fully entered her body, her eyes began to glow with evil. She knelt before the god, and with a determined gaze promised to fulfill the mission. The god began staring at her, and with an angry look revealed that the Spider Queen had been defeated, giving his subordinate the order to go immediately and recover the divine soul of the queen, since a level 8 divine soul could serve for sacrifice. She prostrated herself before the god, lowered her head and decided to go immediately. At the same time, on the defense line of the dragon submerged in the underground cave, Zhang Xuanji tightly gripped his axe, and while his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he swung it forcefully. Tuyang reacted in time and blocked the attack, but in the process his weapon shattered into pieces. Seeing this, his eyes widened with confusion. While they were fighting, the attention of the soldiers focused on them. Zhang Xuanji clenched his fist and his eyes began to shine with excitement and a smile appeared on his face. He strongly stomped on Tu Yong's chest, admitting that Tu Yong was right. He wasn't going to make it in time to collect the corpses of the geniuses, revealing that what he was going to collect now was going to be the corpse of the Spider Queen. At that moment, a red portal appeared and from an evil energy began to emerge. Zhang Xuanji turned around and fixed his gaze on it. Tu Yong stepped aside, asking if Zhang Xuanji believed that the Spider Queen was their last secret card. Tu Yong took advantage of Zhang Xuanji being distracted to step back. Zhang Xuanji began to observe the portal and his eyes filled with confusion, realizing that it was an alert. An enemy of 9 transformations had appeared in Chujiang. He did not know if this was the work of the demonic race. Tu Yong stood up and while his eyes were shining with evil, he began to point at Zhang Xuanji with his finger and decided to play hide and seek. He was going to hide and Zhang Xuanji had to find him, and if at any moment he decided to flee early, he would launch an attack on the city with all his army. Zhang Xuanji turned around and began staring at Tu Yong. He knew that the demons were crossing the line, but seeing that he wanted to play hide and seek, he decided to play with him until the end. Zhang Xuanji's eyes began to shine with rage. He raised his axe in the air and gave the order to the God Slayer army to kill the enemy. Upon hearing the order, all the soldiers raised their weapons and began to charge against Tu Yong. Zhang Xuanji's soldiers began to fight against Tu Yong's army. The demon gave the order to the demonic race to exterminate the city. Tu Yong's eyes began to shine with confusion. He started observing Zhang Xuanji and asked if he was crazy. He had spent decades defending and now he was willing to declare total war on his demonic race. He questioned whether Zhang Xuanji wasn't afraid of unleashing a war between all races for the small city of Kujiang. He couldn't believe that Zhang Xuanji was willing to unleash a war just for some simple geniuses. With an angry expression, Zhang Xuanji attacked using his axe, but Tu Yong reacted in time and blocked the attack. For Zhang Xuanji this was worth it since from ancient times, whoever dared offend Great Xia was punished with death. He made it clear that if Tu Yong killed his geniuses, he would take his head as a trophy. At the same time, the subordinate of the ancient god arrived at the battlefield of Kujiang. She began to fly and her attention was fixed on Zhang's domain. While her body was surrounded by evil energy, she crossed her arms and couldn't help but smile. Realizing that this was Zhang Chen's domain, she couldn't believe that the Spider Queen had been defeated with this trick. She revealed that a simple domain was nothing in front of her. She used her power and launched a powerful slash of energy toward the attack was so powerful that in an instant it broke our boy's domain. Zhang, who was holding the sword, fell to his knees on the ground. The Spider Queen turned around and upon seeing the aura of the 7th seat, she quickly realized that it was the aura of the ancient god. Zhang, who was exhausted, stuck his sword into the ground and with the help of his hand, tried to stand up, but he was unable. Our boy began to observe the 7th seat, and it didn't take long for him to realize that this was the energy of an awakened one of 9 transformations. He couldn't move, and even if he could, he had no strength left to keep fighting. Her eyes began to shine with malice, and with a smile she decided to introduce herself. She was the 7th seat of the Church of the Ancient God, called the Lover. For her it was an honor to meet Zhang. She extended her hand toward our boy, and using her powers began making the bodies of insects float. She decided to send Zhang and the insects to the underworld. Zhang's attention focused on the insects and upon seeing that they had shown their original form, it didn't take him long to realize that she had great power. She extended her hand toward Zhang and decided to launch fireworks, causing the bodies of the insects to explode into pieces. Little Nine, who was sitting on Jiang's shoulder, couldn't help but cry, asking him to protect her. Zhang clenched his teeth and asked her not to be afraid, explaining that if she hid well, nothing would happen. The Lover began to make Zhang's body float, and seeing that he was not satisfied, she decided to turn him into fireworks as well. Our boy clenched his teeth tightly, not knowing what to do. Her power was so strong that Jai Gang and the others fell to their knees on the ground, and their eyes widened in fear. They didn't know who was going to save Zhang now that everyone had been trapped by the energy of the Lover. Ying Zhan's eyes began to shine with hatred. He started sweating and revealed that they were all going to die. Zhang's body was flying upside down. He started to scream, giving the order to Jai Og to manifest and release the dark demon. Just then, blue energy appeared around his body and from it emerged the dark demon. The beast's eyes began to shine with rage. Once the dark demon fully emerged from Zhang's body, it began to stare at the lover with a penetrating gaze, and upon seeing such a powerful creature, she became confused, not knowing how Zhang could summon such a creature. The eyes of the dark demon began to shine and its body started releasing energy. Our boy's body descended to the ground. He forcefully nailed the sword into the ground, and with an angry expression told her that she should not have killed the insects, revealing that now she was going to die. The dark demon opened its mouth and began to charge a powerful energy ball, instead of fleeing. The lover began to release the energy of the ancient god. She decided to use the power of the god to protect herself from the attack. Zhang's attention was fixed on her and his eyes widened with seriousness. Jai Og manifested on his shoulder, explaining that although the 7th seat was no match for the dark demon, it still needed some time to defeat her, since it could only act for 10 seconds, otherwise it would be destroyed by celestial mandate. Time was running out, but with a calm expression, our boy explained that there was no other option. He decided it was better for the dark demon to disappear along with the 7th seat. At that moment, Zhang's sister and a soldier from Zhangguanzi appeared. With an angry gaze, she struck her sword hard at the lover's neck, revealing that she had come to save Zhang Chen. Shen Tufei from the Blue Dragon camp of the god-slaying army announced his arrival and swung his sword forcefully, making it clear that he was not going to allow the demonic creatures to wreak havoc. A powerful flash of energy appeared in the sky, seeing that the celestial mandate had arrived. Zhang Chen gave the order to Jai Og to absorb the dark demon. Jai Og nodded his head, then opened his mouth and absorbed the dark demon. Zhang's sister's sword pierced through the lover's body, causing her terrible pain. She opened her mouth and with a desperate gaze begged them not to kill her, revealing that she could tell them a secret. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,